All right, folks, I think we're about ready to get started here. I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. We have a really great guest with us here to talk about television and how to get involved in TV. So let's go ahead and get started. Billy Warden is a former executive producer with the E! Entertainment Network. Additionally, he has worked for VH1, PAX, NBC, Comedy Central, and Telepictures. He now lives in Raleigh, and he recently began publishing the literary magazine Raleigh Quarterly.
Yeah, thank you for plugging that.
So the purpose of the discussion tonight is to talk about how folks can get into television from right here at the local community level with Community Access TV up to a major, nationally syndicated cable network like E! or PAX or NBC or Comedy Central. I've got a few sort of prepared questions that I'd like to ask first to kind of get us started. A total of about 5 or 6 here. Hey Amy, how are you? Come on in. And then I'll toss it over to you guys. And what I want to emphasize is that if you've got a question, I want to make sure that everybody who has a question gets an opportunity to ask and hopefully turn this into more of a dialogue between all of y'all and Billy and I as well. I do want to mention after the event tonight, we're going to be going over to TK Trips, which is just across the parking lot here. If you'd like to join us for a more informal discussion and maybe some iced tea and some chips or something like that, you're more than welcome to join us over there as well. So my first question, again, the purpose of tonight's discussion is to talk about how folks can get into TV from local community access to nationally syndicated cable networks. And I thought an interesting starting point would be to talk about, just in general, is television going to be relevant in 10 or 20 years' time?
Gosh, I hope so, because I'm a total TV addict. I don't know what I'd do without it. It's just not the same watching it on the laptop. I think that television is going to be relevant, or at least the experience of television, of following a story episode by episode, or following your favorite personality as he or she talks to celebrities and sort of, explores the world. So I think that television in concept is always going to be with us, and how it plays out technologically is really interesting. I did a project last summer with G4. Anybody watch G4? This is not really the demo, but the demo is sort of 15 to 25-year-old dudes sitting around their boxer shorts thinking about video games. But they're all about convergence and about making television a more interactive experience. So being a young network, they have to aggregate a lot of content. So they bought Cops. Everyone's familiar with Cops. Sure. So they threw Cops up there because 15 to 24-year-old dudes tend to like Cops. And but then they made it interactive in that you could comment via your computer on what you were seeing, and they would throw those comments up
What a great idea.
On the screen, and you could get a dialogue going like that. So, and I think that's just a tiny little sliver in the door of what's going to happen interactive-wise on the television front.
Yeah, I think everybody's watched YouTube to some degree, right? And I think, personally, I see the direction going with television and the internet as more of an integration of television and the internet.
Right.
And I wonder what you think about that. Will there come a time in 10 or 15 years' time where we no longer have a TV set as it currently is, and to what degree will we see more integration of the internet with audio-visual content?
I don't think the TV set's going away, because I think it's hardwired into our culture. Just the way you have a fireplace in your house. Most of your houses are probably heated, but you probably have a fireplace in there just because it's a place to gather around. So I think the television set has established itself in our psychology as a gathering place, and it's going to stay that way. But you're still going to be able to get content on your handheld when you're riding the subway. Of course, we don't have mass transit here, so wherever you happen to have your handheld, you'll be able to watch things. So it's going to be, I think, more about television programming surrounding us like it's never happened before, and inviting us in.
Now give us a brief sort of history of your career in television, and then how did you rise to become an executive producer at the E! Television Network?
I'm glad you said rise and not sink, considering that it was E! Well, I was a reporter here at the News and Observer for several years, not that long ago, and I was a features writer, and very much drawn to stories and narratives, new journalism, that kind of thing. And the News and Observer was good to me and published a lot of it and put a lot of it on the front page and was willing to take chances with that. But one day my editor, Marion Gregory, who I don't know if any of you knew Marion, she was a great hard-boiled news lady, smoking and drinking all the time, always told it straight. And she said, yeah, well, why don't you get out of this town and go to Los Angeles or something? And I thought, God, man, it's kind of an insulting thing to say. You want me 3,000 miles away? And she said, no, just go. So that's what I did. And went out to Los Angeles and started writing screenplays and got a screenplay into pre-production, and it went for 18 months that way, and then fizzled and never got made. And it was a terrible experience for somebody as ADD and hyperactive as I am, to do 18 months and not see anything come out of it. So I was like bummed and laying on the couch and flipping through the cable channels, and came across E and thought, well, this is kind of fun. And I just called E and said, I'm a former journalist and I'll work cheap. And they said, well, come on down, we'll put you on something. And then got into doing some programming that way, and being very hyperactive, stayed late and became a producer. Writing in television is great, and it's a great way in, but the power in television is with the producers, and they're the ones that get to have the big conceptual ideas and get to move those ideas into show formats and into pilots and then into production. So just stayed at it that way, and then freelanced with sort of E as my home, as my hub.
Now, how do one question that I had about producers is, how do producers find new content?
Yeah.
What is that process like? How does a producer, let's say I'm a producer at the E! Network or NBC, or I'm sure it's different for different networks.
Sure.
The process is different, but
sure.
Essentially, how does a producer go about finding the next hottest comedian or more interesting television content? Well,
that's a really good point, and to bring up comedian, a person. So a lot of what a producer's job is about finding the personalities, the people that can really light up a television screen, and that was a 24/7 kind of job. I hope that my wife Lucy joins us soon. It's our 17th wedding anniversary tomorrow, so if she doesn't come, I'm gonna be kind of bummed. But we were at a party, and anyone here know Stephen Kojikaro? He's a style guy on Today's Show and sort of very flamboyant, and he'd probably written a couple books that are in here. Yes, he had the kidney transplant, right. So my wife discovered him at a party. There's a lot of parties in Los Angeles, and he was sort of wandering around being flamboyant in a bathrobe that he had fashioned up into some sort of high style piece, and introduced me to him and said, this guy could be something. And she was right, because he had a certain spark to him. He was eccentric, enough that you would want to watch him, because there has to be that freak factor to it. But he was relatable enough that you could like him and want to continue to watch him. So that's a big deal, is going out to the comedy clubs, just looking for personalities that could fit into some kind of format, whether it was Talk Soup, where we always were looking for the next host, because those hosts turned in and out, or whether it's another producer-writer. So when I was at E!, we started up a show. It was called Fashion Emergency. It was one of the early makeover shows, and we got a lot of tapes in looking for producers. And there was this one kid who did a makeover of a reluctant professor at college, sort of stalked him and kept telling him what a lousy dresser he was, and asked him to try on clothes. And it was a hugely amusing piece, and it wasn't shot very well, but it was just really funny. And so we ended up hiring him and flying him from I think Gainesville to Los Angeles to work on the show, and then he moved up and that sort of thing. So it's always about looking for talent that can give you the content you're looking for.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Amy.
I wrote a book a while ago. And
Well, congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. Had since submitted the book to several agents. The book has been published. It's self-published, and not necessarily looking for another publisher, but hoping to get this story into TV or film. And of the agents that came back to me said, well, this needs to be a screenplay. We can't work with a book. Is that true?
It's fiction.
It's a memoir.
Yeah, I think that's probably true if, unless you're, big name, it's probably the case that it's just easier to visualize it as a television or film product if it's in the screenplay form. And I don't know if you wrote it in a really traditional and narrative way, or if it's somewhat experimental, or if it's highly descriptive. If it's highly descriptive and somewhat experimental in its narrative logic, it's a much harder sell if it's not in screenplay form, because we watch television and we watch films to be part of a long-standing tradition of storytelling and story sharing, and most screenplays are written in a very traditional form. And so if a book comes in, fiction or nonfiction, that's highly descriptive, but that's not going to really play in television or film, or if it's experimental and all in its narrative logic, that's going to be hard to follow as well. And what will happen to your book or your screenplay is it will go into a production company, and there'll be a bunch of folks who are in film school, undergrads or graduates, or already graduated and trying to write screenplays, who will read it as they're called readers, and they get 10 to 15 scripts or books a week to plow through, and paid about $50 per coverage. They do coverage, which is a kind of a 2-page form that tells you kind of what it's all about, and then they rate it at the end. So it's scary to think that a book that you've labored over for years, or a screenplay you've labored over for years, it all boils down to a little checkbox, that 24, 25-year-old is doing for $50. So I don't know if that's helpful, but I think that the agents are probably correct that the screenplay format is going to make it a much easier sell. Not that it'll ever be easy.
Now, as an independent producer, how would I get content in front of the kinds of producers who would be interested in developing that content? Let's say I had a TV show, a sort of an Oprah Winfrey style book, once a month club type show or something, whatever the content was.
Yeah.
How do independent television producers get content in front of major networks?
That's really hard.
Are there festivals, film festivals, or that kind of thing?
There's not film festivals. The worst experience, well, it wasn't the worst experience because it turned out okay and it was kind of a great adventure. But on that same show, Fashion Emergency, we were sued by an independent producer who claimed that he had given E the idea for the makeover show. Well, and the makeover shows are just sort of in the air, they're there, there's not much original to it. But they were quite determined and took us to court, and they ended up, just, it was really close in the end there. But we had to get up and testify and all that kind of thing, and it was, so that was kind of fun in a way, but it wasn't much fun for the president of the network and things. And the lesson that I learned was, don't listen to anybody's idea. It's fine to talk to personalities about things, but God, don't hear a pitch. And if you are going to hear a pitch, make sure that it's set up through an agent, and that the agent comes in through the talent development person at the company, which makes it hard because you want to protect yourself and the network you're with from any legal liability, and the people on the other side who might think you stole their idea, if they're determined to push it, can get a decent lawyer on contingency, because there's a lot of money in Los Angeles in the entertainment business, and that lawyer might seek a quick settlement that makes everybody a little cash. So it's really hard to do unless you have an agent. And getting an agent can be hard. I mean, how many folks in the room have an agent? All right. New York or LA based or somewhere else? New York. All right. That person has a huge leg up in terms of submitting any kind of material, because of the legal ramifications, and also because of the credibility factor. So your work was good enough to attract an agent whose time is very limited and who also works on contingency, so you're probably good enough to rate a pitch or a look at a pilot.
When you say agent, well, this is a three-part question.
Joe, I'm not going to be able to follow that.
First part is, I have an agent. I'm in the unions myself, and I'm an actress, and I've had agents that way as an actress. However, I developed my own show here, local public access in Chapel Hill, and it's Holistic Health. I just had an experience recently where I pitched it to a big production company. I did not protect myself well enough in the sense I gave too much information over the phone, and as we spoke 2 or 3 times on the phone, all of a sudden now he's said, oh, I'm kind of developing a show like this already. So my question is, how do I protect myself? Because now that I've got this concept and I'm pitching, this is my second time pitching it to 2 big producers. How do I protect myself? That's 1. 2, I was not aware that you can get an agent if you're trying to pitch a show as a producer, because I wrote it, I directed it, produced it, everything.
Yeah.
So that's a second part. And I guess the third part is, like, my concept is holistic health, and I was thinking about going to Discovery Health. And when I went to the website, they had said that you have to be an independent producer, so to speak. So do I have to make my own production company, or do I need to find a production company to represent me? I know I hit a lot at you just now.
Well, I think in terms of protecting yourself, it would be good to set up a LLC as a production company. That gives you a little bit more credibility, and protects you if you get in any kind of legal trouble for whatever reason. And so, setting up an LLC, simple, a limited liability corporation, just a matter of downloading some forms from the Secretary of State's office, and maybe there's a $50 fee or something. So that wouldn't be a bad idea. In terms of protecting your idea, I would try to get something on paper. So if you just had phone conversations, then the production company that you had those conversations with might have them in a phone log. But better to have sent along something in an email or registered mail, something like that, where you can say, I have a bad feeling about how this turned out with these 3 conversations, and now you're developing a holistic show, and I don't think you've been honest with me, and I want to remind you that I've sent you these emails, and I have a written record, just so you have a written record of your show, of your idea. Yeah, an agent will represent any kind of creative content, is my experience. So when I was in Los Angeles, I had an agent, and that was all about going in and pitching him ideas and him telling me where he wanted to take those ideas. So you can get an agent, especially if you have some material that you've actually shot or something that's more than just words in the air. You ought to be able to get an agent for those things.
What type of agent, though? Because I have an acting agent, hosting agent, but I don't have what type of agent would it be?
No, well, nothing more technical than a TV agent. There's gazillions of those guys and girls that are out pitching producers, looking to help producers land in jobs, or pitching show ideas from producers. My agent was at ICM. They all have them. William Morris and Endeavor. They all have TV agents who will rep producers. And then holistic health sounds like an interesting point. And being in Chapel Hill, do you know Bill Hayes?
Yes, I pitched it to him.
Is the Bill Hayes the guy you're talking about?
No.
Okay.
No, actually, he loved the idea. He said he tried to pitch a Discovery Health. He had some issues about it, but I'm still going forward with it. I'm still going to go. He was very nice. He was great. He was wonderful. But he just said it's a hard sell.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about it, and I just feel like if I just keep going, I think it'll take off. Because I think our society and our culture is open to holistic health. And people getting tired of taking medications, having side effects and surgeries, and the more we educate people about holistic health, the more open-minded they are. They have more choice. They can make their health care.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a matter of getting to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, you are passionate. So keep it out there, but try to get an agent and try to get something on paper.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I was just going to say, about 5 years ago, I was involved in an intellectual property dispute where someone, the difference that was made was that the written record not just had the date the person talked to, but it was in a spiral-bound notebook. Spiral-bound notebook has legal significance because you can't pull out and put back in sheets.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
So one question that I have is, how do television networks find distribution through major cable providers and satellite providers. Let's say, you know, like the Bravo network, I don't know how many folks are familiar with that, or Ovation, which is a new one that I've heard about recently. How do these television networks actually find distribution with Time Warner Cable or with DirecTV or with Dish Network? Let's say you had a television network you wanted to create.
Right.
How do you get it distributed?
Oh, I don't know. That wasn't my cup of tea. I mean, it wasn't my thing. Thank God. But when I was at E, we launched the Style Network, and you know, it was key for us when launching that network to aggregate a lot of light content with some original stuff sprinkled on top. So we bought a bunch of shows. I think we bought Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, some other pieces like that, you know, style shows, and then pulled over some e-programming, so there was some personality awareness, and then kicked off probably 3 original series. So we could go to the providers and say, look, this is the real deal, and we're in it for the long haul. We're not going to fold in the next 6 months, and you need to give us a little bit of that, you know, valuable space. And then, like any sales, there's some really slick guys in E and everywhere else whose job it is to fly around the country and wine and dine people, and you know, they've got hundreds of thousands of dollars expense accounts, and they do that really well, and make it easy for the producers to crank out content. I was at Zoom Culture heading up their programming. Does anyone here Zoom Culture? Yeah, it was a great company, a little bit ahead of its time. I think I was there in 2002 to 2004. It was based in Chapel Hill, and the idea was that we were going to give kids, 18 to 24-year-olds around the country, cameras, which Sony did provide, and that they would tape what was interesting to them, and that we would work with them and package up lifestyle shows aimed at that 18 to 24-year-old demo. And we had a bunch of venture capital money, like $5 million in venture capital money, and went through every dime in those 2 years, and then folded. But in those 2 years, we did land on a couple concepts that worked out in terms of, you know, getting a 19-year-old to roll out of bed and get to an interview on time and that kind of thing. And we did a hip hop show, we did an extreme sports show, and we did a college comedy show. And the distribution path for all of those were torturous, even though we were aiming at a desired demographic, 18 to 24-year-olds, and we had an interesting twist on it, that this was stuff shot by them for them. And Hip Hop Nation was our most successful show, and we syndicated that through the NBC O&Os, owned and operated stations. And so that was carried around the country on like 12 stations, 12 NBC stations after Saturday Night Live. And then we had a successful run there, and so the syndication company that does Live at the Apollo picked it up and put it on as the back end to Live at the Apollo. So that was fairly successful. But still the revenue was not that great. And then Playground Earth was our extreme sports show. We did that through Fox Sports. They put it on late at night and then did it internationally. And the comedy show was actually done through Harold Ramis's production company. Harold Ramis, the director, is so funny, and I was so excited to work with this production company, but that didn't last long. But that went through Comedy Central. But that was really, really tough, even with the content and even with $5 million in backing.
How much money do these distribution channels charge typically, ballpark figure, for a network, for a new upstart network? Don't know.
I could take a guess. I don't think it's all that much, because we didn't get paid that much. You know, Eddie, we did okay, but I don't think that they're making tons and tons of money.
But sort of, I guess, television 101 for us, definitely for me.
Yeah.
If you wanted to start a new television network, you make your money through ad revenue, right? You have television spots, commercials, and then the money that you make, part of your budget would be, I guess, to pay towards a distribution channel, whether it's Time Warner or Dish Network or DirecTV.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, you know, there's a lot of pay-for-play deals that are out there. Sure, you have to have some revenue going into your carriers. Yeah. But how that deal looks on paper, you know, my closest experience with that is with Zoom Culture, where we did do some pay-for-play, and it doesn't look great. So I think it's really tough to get a new network started without some kind of big backing, without pitching your idea to an existing network that has the track record and has the capital to get you up and going in the lean years. I wouldn't know how you would do it otherwise.
Seems like content is huge. You'd have to have just a tremendous amount of content right out of the gates.
Yeah, and that's why you go out and you try to buy shows that would be on the bargain shelf to some degree, but when you package them all together, you've got something that will be appealing to a certain demographic out there.
Looks like we have a question or two back here in the corner.
Two. I'm going to defer to him first because he had his hand first. But then when you come back to me.
Hey.
Question of agents is one worth examining more closely because the typical person here would have to use an agent in almost every instance we can think of if they don't have your kind of chutzpah and
Right.
drive and so forth. So there's a lot of different ways you can protect yourself in terms of landing an agent. One is to play the alphabet soup game. All professional associations have their own professional guidelines, ethics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you find an agent who's a member, I can't even remember the names right now, but maybe you can help. If you find an agent who's a member of, the North American Agent Society, whatever it is, and actually use that term when you first call them, found your name through the association, then they're already on guard that they're going to have to treat you a little better. But on top of that, they tend to be more ethical. They paid their dues on a regular basis. There's a directory that comes out. They all know each other. They have an annual convention. So I would always go with an agent or producer or in any line who's a member of one of the long-standing accredited associations.
Is there a question in the near future?
No, there's no question. The second thing is there are places online such as editors and creditors that will actually alert you to unethical agents or people who had a problem with agents.
Ma'am, did you have a question for Billy?
One is in terms of going to somebody who, quote unquote, is an agent, is it also possible to go to somebody who's a former agent, still successful in the business now as a manager? Would they still be considered an agent, or do they automatically get like the slate gets wiped clean?
Managers are really trendy in Hollywood, in the entertainment business 10 or 15 years ago. And the idea was that they could be more complete deal makers because they had a wider reach than agents. But they're still out there. I think that the trend is sort of off of them. But yeah, anybody who has connections can help get you in. I mean, agents are all, former agent, current agent, or manager, whatever. It's really all about people who are connected and trusted in the business. You, as a producer, you have to have that trust factor. Someone says, you need to look at this product, and you're getting so many messages that way. Hundreds of requests a week to look at somebody or something. So if there's somebody who has the confidence of the industry, then that's somebody you ought to invest in.
Just to follow that up, why does it seem that managers appear to be nicer than agents? What is that? What is the difference?
I don't know. I think that'd be scary. I wouldn't trust anybody who appears too nice. My agent at ICM, when I used to come in and pitch him shows, his thing was he had some sort of paddle that he had gotten from his frat house at Harvard or wherever, and so he would just he would stand up and he would pound that paddle into his hand as I was pitching, and he wouldn't stop until we hit on an idea that he liked and felt like he could make some calls on it that afternoon. It's like scarred me for life. But he wasn't particularly nice, but he was a good agent. He got me a lot of work.
We have other questions.
What is the difference between an agent and a manager?
The difference between an agent and a manager.
This is a really stupid question.
That's a great question.
No, not stupid at all. I don't know that I can explain it that well. I mean, in my experience, my agent would hear me out on show ideas, take those show ideas back to his group, his television group at ICM, and come back and say, we think we can get you into NBC, or we think we can get you into VH1 with this, or whatever, and here's your meeting time, and here's who you're meeting with. And that was the end of it. And if we did a deal, then he'd get a cut of that, and he'd be happy, and when we do it again. I had a manager in Los Angeles named Warren Zide, who's a good guy, and Warren did the American Pie series. I'm sure you guys all love the whole American Pie series. But Warren's deal was a little different. So I would go to Warren with movie ideas, and say, let's do Sorority House in Space, Warren, and he'd say, oh yeah, that's great. And so Warren would he would not just set me up with a meeting at Fox or Universal or whatever. Warren would want to attach himself as the producer, or attach more of his talent in there. And the agents will do that too. They'll try to bring some of their talent to it. But in my experience, the manager was more in on the deal, not just a facilitator of the deal, but would make himself integral to the deal in order to build that management business. But I don't know if that helps, and you better do some research online, because that's just all anecdotal. There's my wife right over there. Come on over here, hon. I told him it's our 17th anniversary. I told him about how you discovered Stephen Kojikaro.
Did you tell him the Warren Zide story about the problem with the great award-winning script?
No, we're not going to tell that story. But Lucy was an entertainment lawyer out there.
Let me get this right. The main character was a woman. The characters were too poor, and nobody got killed.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Come on over.
In some of mailing to agents and things like that, I had a lot of responses from people to tell me to get or to talk to an entertainment lawyer, an entertainment attorney.
Mm-hmm.
Do they primarily do the same things that an agent would do?
Entertainment lawyers can be really helpful. They can be great. Now they will ultimately turn you over to an agent, but again, those are people with great relationships, great connections, and they're folks who have the trust of the industry. It's all about having the trust of the people in the industry, and so yeah, if you can get with an entertainment lawyer, and there's probably more of those here who have some standing in the business than there are agents and managers. I may be,
So is it just as good to talk to an entertainment attorney as opposed to an agent?
I would say in this market, yeah. I would say if you can get an audience with an entertainment lawyer out of Raleigh, North Carolina, that's a good thing. Yeah, that's good. I mean, if you're Los Angeles or New York, it's better to have an agent at a big house. But entertainment lawyers can be great. Lucy, would you agree? Because Lucy is an entertainment lawyer. David Colden and Joel McEwen and those guys. I mean, they do a lot of deals.
Oh, yeah.
Well, who are they? Are they local?
No. The one entertainment lawyer I know who's local is the guy Jim O'Brien, and Hutton and Williams has one.
Yeah, but I would say from here, in terms of networking and sort of getting your foot in the door, yeah, I guess maybe some of those local folks.
Mm-hmm. What firm is Jim O'Brien at?
He's at Pointer and Sproul, and
Because I Googled entertainment lawyers and got zero in Raleigh.
There's not many of them.
there's not many in North Carolina because all the deals are made in New York or Los Angeles. The fact that someone may be writing from here, or even that a film is produced here, the deals were made where the production, and you could have a production company here, but the studio is not.
Well, I'm wondering again why nobody came up when I looked for them.
I don't know.
Probably are not looking for work in that area because they could get a better retainer fee from larger businesses in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Tried North Carolina Writers Network. I
Oh,
found
yeah.
my entertainment lawyer through North Carolina Writers Network, and I don't have an agent, but he helped me negotiate my contract with my publisher.
Mhm.
My third book is coming out in October.
Congrats. What's it called?
The third book will be called Camp Follower. I'm published through a small press,
Mhm.
and the first two are already out. The third one's coming out in October. The entertainment attorney helped me negotiate the contract with my publisher, so I actually retain a good portion of the rights. So go through North Carolina Writers Network, and he had a special rate through North Carolina Writers Network. I don't know if he's still working through North Carolina Writers Network, but that's a good place to start, or probably any Writers Network, maybe
What
South
was his
Carolina.
name?
I don't remember. I'm sorry. This was several years ago.
I would like to mention this as well. I know I had put it on the Meetup site, so I might as well talk a little bit about the local public access network as well. We had, what's your name?
Christine.
Christine mentioned that she has a TV show on the public access network over in Chatham County?
Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill. And in Raleigh, we have a community access broadcast network as well. It's called the Raleigh Television Network. In fact, they have quarterly orientations which are free for the public to attend. You don't need to sign up or anything. And the next quarterly orientation is next Saturday. So there won't be another one for another 3 months after next Saturday. It'll be held at the City Council Chambers at 222 West Hargett Street. I know it's on the Meetup site as well, and we've had about 15 folks who have RSVP'd that they're planning to come to that. With the show that I have on Raleigh Television Network, it's an author interview TV show. Basically, we have authors in studio. We interview them. Some of you have probably seen the videos on YouTube if you haven't seen it on the actual television. But anybody who is a citizen of Wake County can go through the training at the Raleigh Television Network and develop your own TV show. So if you've got the idea for a coffee talk show or an auto mechanic show or whatever content that you want to create, it's paid for largely by our taxpayer dollars. So I would encourage you to first attend the orientation. There's basically there's about a 3-step process to developing the show. You've got to go to the orientation first, then you need to go to the producer's workshop second, and then you'll have to go through some of the training to learn how to use the equipment. You'll have to decide whether you want to do a field production or an in-studio production as well. But the orientation is the first step, and I can chat more about that at a later date. But are there any questions, Richard?
Next Saturday, you said, at 222 West Hargett Street, what time?
The time on that's a great question, is 10 until 2, so 10 a.m. And I'd encourage you to get there a few minutes early, maybe around 9:45 or so. And the seating there's for about 150 people, and they'll probably fill up most of that space. It's amazing how many folks come to the orientation, and then that number is cut almost by 90% for the producer's workshop. The producer's workshop costs $15 to attend. The training's about $80 if you want to learn how to use the control room, and then there's about a $100 fee to use the studio per year. So for about $200 total, you could have a television show up and running, potentially reaching 90,000 Time Warner subscribers in Wake County.
That's great.
It's a tremendous service, and I've learned a lot about the audiovisual stuff that I'm doing here by doing that show. So I would encourage you to look into that. Do we have
Tom
other-
Green came on at public access.
Well, there you go.
Remember Tom Green on MTV?
Do we have other questions?
Just one question on your career. When you were pitching, did you ask?
Go ahead.
You're up.
When you were pitching to your agent a show idea, so you're really coming off as the creator. You're wearing the creator hat when you were pitching it, and if he liked that idea, then you become the writer and producer, or would you find people to fill those hats?
Yeah, then we would go in and pitch the show with me as the executive producer, and so as the executive producer, I wouldn't do all the writing, but we'd fill in that staff and fill in the production staff. So the exec producer sort of sits on top of the show, gets it going, maybe stays with it, maybe up to a year, maybe, or maybe just 6 months, and then moves on to the next project, if everything is working out like it should.
Is it better to, when you pitch your idea, and this is where one of the producers gave me this option, is to buy out or be a part of the show? And I was right on the fence, and he says, well, it'll be a handsome buyout, or you become producer, executive producer, associate producer of the show, and you stay on as salaried. Any advice on, if that comes up again for me, which way to go?
I would stay on because then you have a hand in making sure it's successful the way you want it to be, and it can become a real building block for you. Whereas it depends on how handsome it is, I guess, at the end of the day. But I think staying on and having some ownership of the show, and I don't mean ownership legally, but being there and shaping it and having your hands on it, and getting that experience under your belt of running the show day to day, I think is a huge thing in terms of furthering your career in television. But that's just my preference, you know. Because I think it's just a great business. Television's so much fun. I just can't. If you ever watch 30 Rock, it's kind of like 30 Rock. 30 Rock's pretty good, but it's just such a rush, you know. Every day it's so much fun, and my friends at Telepictures called me in July and said, "Yeah, you're living down south now, aren't you?" He said, "Yeah." They said, "So you've gone all cracker on us?" I said, I guess. Why? And they said, "Well, because we need a cracker to come up here and write the Paula Deen pilot." So I said, "Oh yeah, baby, I'm all cracker." So we went up to Atlantic City for 3 days, and we shot it at the Circus Maximus at Caesars. It's a talk show. It's like an Ellen kind of a thing with Paula. You know, she makes her big buttery recipes, and everyone cries a little bit into the stuff. But God, I just bring that up because it was so much fun. You know, it's just a whole other world. And if you ever get a chance to take a shot at television, you know, don't turn it down. It's just a mile a minute fun.
Very good. Great question. Suzanne.
Now, I have a question about back to screenplays, writing screenplays. I have heard many people say, if you're an author, don't write your own screenplay. And I've heard other people say, you know, sure, go ahead and take a crack at it. You know, you can read books on how to do it and so forth. Assuming that you say you have written stuff and you want to, it's published and you want to see it go into screenplay, what's a good source of finding people to write it? Would you go out to the university and you go into a class there, find some undergrads?
That's a great question.
That is a great question. Screenplay writing is really, really tough, and most screenplays suck, and even people who can write good long prose write terrible screenplays. So I think that's a really interesting one. I would go to maybe find a graduate program in it. I don't think there's probably many good undergrad screenwriters, but I bet you there are some good graduate student screenwriters. And maybe look for the ones who have who graduated with some sort of honors or something, and see if they do it. You know, because they'd be really hungry, and you know, if you could pay them, I don't know, if you could pay them with one meal at Applebee's a week, they'd probably do it.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Let's just say there's this person who has a whole bunch of great projects. People keep telling me how great they are. Is it crazy to be living here?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think that if you've got a lot of great ideas and you really want to do it, and people reinforce your ambition by telling you you're good, or even if they don't, you know, what do they know? Then
I think they're very accurate.
Then you should then you should definitely go to New York or Los Angeles. I'd go to Los Angeles. I had a great time in Los Angeles. But I think making a go of it in a market like Raleigh is always going to be really, really hard. And Raleigh will always be here, and it won't have changed that much. I'm so sorry.
That said, to play devil's advocate, we did mention at the very beginning how the internet is kind of changing the landscape of things. As most of you know, I do have a little public access TV show here in Raleigh, and I am able to get each of the episodes online. This that I'm filming today, you've seen me with the remote control, probably wondering what the heck I'm doing. I'm moving the camera around, getting all the good footage. This film will go online in the next 24 hours or so, and it'll end up at the howtopublishabook.org website, which you guys have flyers in your seats for. This website reaches about 60 countries worldwide, or I should say 60 countries worldwide are coming to that website every month to watch these videos. So where's the money in it, you know, if you're doing something like this? Well, Google bought out YouTube just this past year. This is something that's happened about 12 months ago. And without getting too technical, basically, I now have a commercial on my website through YouTube. And every time somebody clicks on that commercial, which happens to be related to the content of the website, I get paid about $1 per click. Well, I just started this about 2 weeks ago, and I'm up to about $100 in a matter of 2 weeks with some, average size traffic on my website. What this does is it changes the landscape, because anybody in this room can have a website. Most of you probably do. And on your website, you can now have a television commercial related to the content of your website, which will make you money. At the very least, it'll pay for the expense of having the website by the end of the year. At the rate that I'm making money right now, with about 1,000 visitors to the site per month, I'll make probably about $1,000 to $1,500 at the end of the year, which is, it's not huge money. I can't buy a new home with that, but it'll certainly pay for the website and then some. And it's a game of the more eyeballs you can get to your website, the more money you're going to make. And typically, if you're building a website and you develop more and more traffic as you go along, you're going to get more and more people clicking on the ads or what have you. Again, that ad is called a Google AdSense Video Unit. If you're taking notes, a Google AdSense Video Unit, and this is brand new technology, and it's really fascinating how this works.
Is that the same for, say, a blog? Could you put a commercial on
Absolutely.
your blog?
I've got a blog, the bookpublishingcompany.blogspot.com, and up at the top there's a YouTube banner. And all of the videos are related to publishing. Google is sophisticated enough that they can read the page, see what kind of content is on the page, and then make the videos appropriate to the content on your web page. And it's constantly revolving videos. So as soon as somebody refreshes the page, it's a new video commercial.
How do you do that?
Check out Google AdSense Video Unit. Just do a Google search for that. The first thing you need to do is set up a Google AdSense account, which costs nothing to do. This is, again, a way to make third-party folks like us money through our websites.
They have to approve you. It's an application process as well.
It is, but it wasn't difficult to get approved.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of filling out just like if you set up a Yahoo email account, it's basically the same thing. But this new thing, the Google AdSense Video Unit, absolutely blew my mind, because it changes the landscape. It's a television commercial related to the content to your website. So people typically find the How to Publish a Book website by typing in how to publish a book. So somebody in Indonesia or India or the UK or the United States who sits down at their home computer and types in how to publish a book on their Google or Yahoo search engine finds my website because it ranks high. And then when they get to that site, there's a commercial talking about how to publish a book, or about how to design a children's book, or about how to design a holistic book.
But you have no say-so in these commercials.
You have a little bit. You can use keywords to optimize the types of commercials that will be displayed. But Google will mostly read the content on your blog or on your website and then make the videos appropriate to that content.
Like, when you say Google, you're talking about a group of actual people, not just computers.
No, it's probably computers. All computers reading the words on your web page. If you've got an acting blog, for example, the word actor comes up a lot. Google will read that, and then it'll put a commercial that'll make the commercial related to, well, maybe acting lessons, or some guy's acting DVD or whatever.
Right, the same computer spider that puts the ads on your Gmail. If you have Gmail, it's going to do what Stacy's talking about. That's a really good point. I mean, the internet is. I shouldn't be so cavalier about Raleigh, especially in the age of the internet. There's a lot of great venues out there now for creative people, like funnyordie.com. You could go and do a great video and become #1 on funnyordie.com, and that's got some cachet. So you can do a lot from Raleigh.
I mean, if you just play with the numbers just a little bit, I'm getting about 1,000 visitors per month on my website. At the end of this year, at the rate that I've been making money in the past 2 to 3 weeks with this Google AdSense Video Unit, that'll be a little over 1,000, probably between $1,000 and $1,500 for the year. if I could get my visitors on my site up to, say, 10,000 per month, which is not astronomical, but if I could increase it by tenfold, then I'm making between 10,000 and 15,000 per year through this AdSense video unit. Again, it's all a numbers game. It's how many people can you get to your website, and a lot of that is content. If you've got, if you're into holistic medicine and health, there's an audience for that. Folks are looking for that kind of thing out there. So it's a matter of designing a website and developing content that's appropriate for it.
Can you tell me that Google place to go?
I would just look up the Google AdSense. Just look up Google AdSense is a great way to start. And then there's a specific ad called the video unit, the Google AdSense video unit.
Is it ADSENTS?
No, it's ADSENSE.
Okay.
Do you have a question, sir?
Yeah. Did you look into kind of other revenue models in addition to the one that you're using now, kind of like maybe some embedded videos at the beginning or end of your, how to publish book videos, or
that's a great question.
Like pay for each download sort of thing? Did you look into that?
That's a great question. To be honest, I haven't. This was so new to me and the technology is so new that honestly it's new to everybody. And to give you a little bit of a backstory here, I basically, I started with a Google AdSense account, which was a banner. I was able to put a banner on my website. And I didn't want to clutter up my website, so I buried the banner at the very bottom of the homepage, way down by the copyright section of the site, and left it on there, and I didn't think anything about it. And I didn't think I was making any money from it. About 4 weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I got a postcard from Google, and the postcard said you need to activate your Google AdSense account because you've been making money through your Google AdSense banner. So I was like, well, that's interesting. So I activated the account, and there was about $40 that I had made simply from having a banner that I had buried at the bottom of the homepage. So then the light bulb went on. I was like, oh, I wonder how I can make this more sophisticated and make it more attractive and more of a moneymaker. And that's when I added this video unit. I found out about that within about a day or two, got it up on the website, and then since then have doubled that money in about 2 to 3 weeks.
What are you using to track your? You say you get about 1,000 clicks a month. Are you using something to track that?
That's a great question as well. I use Google Analytics, and you can use Google Analytics on any website, whether it's a blog or whether it's your own personal website. Google Analytics, it's free, and it's amazing. It reads everything about the site. It tells me the countries that these folks are coming from. It tells me how long they stay on the site. It tells me just all kinds of fascinating information. One specific thing that I've noticed in the past couple of weeks is my bounce rate. This thing called a bounce rate. Has anybody ever heard of a bounce rate? My bounce rate has decreased in percentage, which means that people are actually staying on the site more. Bounce means that they come to the site and then they leave it immediately. The bounce rate has dropped by about 20% in the past month or so, which means that people are finding the site and finding it more, or are a little bit more curious about it, and so Google Analytics is I would highly recommend that. Yes, Vanessa.
If somebody has a script for a movie and they want to give it to someone, let's say they just want to give it to someone who's not an agent, but someone that knows someone that's producing movies, where do they register?
Just do it with the WGA.
It's WGAWest.com?
I don't know what the website is, but I mean...
That's the one I have. That's what I was
yeah.
double checking.
Yeah. That's what I do.
Certain screenwriting softwares, too, will actually automatically have links to the WGA website. Or if you have like Final Draft or something like that, you can register it through Final Draft or WGA.
Yeah. There's you all have interesting questions, and you're here tonight, so I'd like to hear from you at some point about what you're up to, because I'm always looking for partners and things. The TV and the film business is a very social business, which is why I like it. because it's not, you know, you don't have to be alone and all that kind of stuff.
Well, this is a great opportunity for me to plug. Did I mention TK Trips afterwards? If you want to come over and have a drink with us, we'd love to have you over there. I do have a sign-in sheet. I'm going to pass this around. I can let you know about upcoming events. Many of you have already signed up for this. But if you would, just put your name and email address on there, and then I can let you know about upcoming events. A few things that we do have upcoming in the next month or so. We have an open mic night contest again. So you guys who were here for the open mic night contest, the last time that we did that, we'll do another one. September 20th is the date on that. Saturday, September 20th. It'll be in the evening. So make plans to attend that. Then in addition, this is the big one coming up this fall. Some of you have probably seen this on the Meetup site, but in October 25th, we will have the executive editor from Algonquin Books in store, Chuck Adams. Talk about somebody who writers want to have some FaceTime with. This guy's the executive editor at Algonquin. In addition to that, we'll have literary agent Sally Hill McMillan, the best literary agent in the state of North Carolina. She's driving up from Charlotte, so she will be on the panel with Chuck Adams on Saturday, October 25th. That'll be an early afternoon event because there's an event already planned for the store that evening. So that'll be at 1 p.m. Saturday, October 25th. Richard, here.
Can I get in 3 quick plugs?
Please do.
I'll do it quick. So Stacy mentioned the Raleigh Quarterly, www.raleighquarterly.com. It's a new online magazine. We also have a print edition coming out in September through Barefoot Press, and we're looking for short stories and essays and poetry and photography and art, so please visit that. Cal is our poetry editor, and Molly Miller is our art curator. Some of you may know Molly, so it's a real thing, and it's off to a great start, and we hope you'll participate. SparkCon this year, September 19th and 20th, downtown, will feature Story Spark, a new literary festival. We have G.D. Girino coming. We have Will Rokos coming, who was nominated for an Oscar for a screenplay for Monsters Ball. We have William Konescu, who is a fellow over at NC State who has a first novel coming out. We have Pulitzer Prize winner and provocateur Michael Scooby coming in to rant about things, and we hope that we can plug in Stacy to do a special Write to Publish program at the Poorhouse, because I think what Stacy's doing is great, just tremendous that he's got this thing going and got everyone so involved.
So I'm going to be busy on the 20th of September, because that's the same night as the open mic night. Please come
to Story Spark. And then want to plug my parents, Bill and Nancy, right over there, because I've always loved TV and film, and used to take out the movie camera and make little movies. And my favorite moment was when they discovered a chase scene I had filmed in their van, and actually saw the van go up on 2 wheels.
And Bill jumped right out of his seat. Now I know what's wrong with the van.
And so thanks for having me, and thank you very much for what you're doing.
We've maybe got time for a few more questions here. Let's if there are there other questions? Okay, let's go for let's say about 5 more minutes or so we'll answer a few more questions. Yes, ma'am.
I was just wondering whether you're writing a screenplay or wanting to publish a book, would it be the same type of agent either way? Whether
That's a great question. So the question is, are literary agents different than film agents?
Well, in my experience, they are, because the agent's job is to have the connections. And I think you want an agent who says, I do TV, and I know everyone in the TV business, and I'm about TV 24/7, I eat, breathe TV. And you want a book agent who can say the same thing about the publishing world. That's for you. So if you got somebody who says they cover the whole entertainment industry, they're just lying. But if you go into some place like William Morris, if you're interested in books, but you also have a screenplay or something, I think William Morris is a great place to go, because they're so well established, and they're well established in all those fields. And whoever becomes your agent, whoever you make money for, is going to be your champion in William Morris, whether it's on the TV or film or book front. But that agent can get you into the other parts of the company.
And with the larger agencies, I'll just second that, like William Morris and some of the other agencies, they do have literary agents in-house and film agents, but they tend to specialize in one of those areas. But for a large house like William Morris or ICM, they're going to be able to walk down the hall or pick up the phone and call somebody at the same agency, I would imagine, who has connections in the literary world. But typically a literary agent focuses on literary stuff and has her connections with publishers, and then film agents have connections in the film business. Hannah, did you have a question?
If you go back to the poetry piece, you mentioned that there was a poetry part of
The Raleigh Quarterly.
Yeah, the Raleigh Quarterly. We were publishing a lot of poetry, and the print edition is going to feature 4 poems. And Cal's really the guy to talk to there. He
Cal,
edits all
could
the
you
poems.
stand up so everybody can see you?
Cal Nort.
Well, tell us a little bit about the Raleigh Quarterly. You've already had a couple of big name authors in the Raleigh Quarterly, right?
We had Jeff Gordon-Air is the editor at large at Details magazine and the author of X Saves the World, and he came here. He was right here to do a thing at Quail Ridge, and then came down and did our launch party. He's been on the site, and Lawrence Naumoff from Carolina has contributed an original story. And we've got some others in there as well, but it's really for we're happy to get those established names, but it's really for